We're going to start with the SOCOM rumor. I feel like this is the most appropriate topic to start with because I did mention it again very briefly, but I completely wrote it off. I basically, so here's the situation with the SOCOM rumor. I'm going to read this article from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says, rumors of a SOCOM PS5 game have reemerged after fans spotted the title in a late actor's resume. And hold on, I actually meant to... There we go. My nose is reflecting that light. That's weird. Sorry, I just wanted to change the lighting a little bit there. I feel like it's not bright enough. That's fine. That's fine. My nose is just going to be a little shiny. But it says here, David Veitch, who passed away in January of 2022 at age 54, apparently did motion capture work for Sony on something called SOCOM 111. And it doesn't look like he meant the 2005's PS2 game SOCOM 3 U.S. Navy SEALs. Rumors of a new SOCOM game first emerged in 2019 when insider Titix claimed that Guerrilla Games had been tapped for the task. They previously claimed in 2017 that Sony was looking for the right developer to bring the series back, but since then, Titix hasn't necessarily been the most reliable. The rumors were largely dismissed and forgotten about. Fast forward to this weekend when a Redditor discovered Veitch's resume, which is still up on Actors Access website at the time of this writing. Veitch did motion capture work on something called SOCOM 111, which some say might be another way of saying SOCOM 3. However, Veitch is nowhere to be found, and this is the important part. This actor, this mocap actor, is nowhere to be found in the game's credits, and none of his work is listed on IMDb, none of his work listed on IMDb mention SOCOM. So, yeah, this is what I totally overlooked and makes this very interesting. And we have Aries09 keeping the membership train going. Aries09 drops a membership gift for you guys, which brought us to 11. But then we have Paul Ganell, longtime member, coming in, keeping this going, dropping 5 more membership gifts for you guys, bringing us up to 16 on the day. So Paul
thank you.
And Aries09, thank you guys for that. And you know what?
Enough for me. We're going to have to
throw Jim Ryan in there. I'm going to be trying to play some more Jim Ryan since he's officially retired. But, we're approaching the showcase season. Legendary quote there. So thank you for that, guys. We are now at 16 members on the day. So just like that, we are less than 10 away from hitting the first goal, which is awesome to see. So thank you for that. But you see, that's what makes this situation with SOCOM so interesting, and I was not aware of this. When I dismissed this initially, I thought to myself that, okay, this is just bogus because this actor clearly worked on SOCOM 3, and that's why he listed it as SOCOM 111. But what really kind of changed it around for me was when people did some digging, and they realized that this actor is nowhere to be found on the credits, or for the credits, for not just SOCOM 3, but any SOCOM game. And so it makes me think, holy shit, is it happening? Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I mean, this is just a very small sliver of hope, and we could end up disappointed, but that really kind of was like, oh, all right, maybe there is something to this. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put up this poll. I'm putting up this poll. I want you guys to vote on it. I'm asking you, do you think we will get a new SOCOM for PS5? I put 3 options, either yes, no, or 50-50 chance. I feel like I had to put a 50-50 chance in there because I feel like that's how a lot of people feel. That's kind of how I feel. Here's what's interesting to me about the SOCOM conversation is I feel like we've been hearing about SOCOM off and on pretty much since this generation started. And it really did kind of start with that rumor that Guerrilla Games was potentially the one making a new SOCOM game for PS5. And that made a lot of sense. Well, it made a lot of sense in one way, but in another way, it didn't make the most sense because on one hand, we had Guerrilla Games with their expertise in first-person shooters with Killzone. But when you look at SOCOM, that's more of a tactical third-person shooter. But we also found out that Guerrilla Games had hired the lead director and developer who worked on Rainbow Six Siege, one of the most popular tactical shooters on the market. And a lot of people thought, like, oh man, he must have been hired to work on SOCOM. And this is where I just kind of can't drop this rumor that, like, now we're seeing this actor's resume and he's not featured on any credits. It's like, holy shit, has Sony actually been working this entire time behind the scenes on a new SOCOM game? I don't know, man. I want to believe. I'm on the hopium right now, man. And we had PS Therapy coming in, dropping another 5-bomb for you guys. PS Therapy is not letting this membership train slow down today. He says we are going the distance, man. PS Therapy wants to see us hit a 3rd goal today, which means even more reps. So PS Therapy.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that, man. Let me throw in a, let's see, what should I throw in here? How about we do
not be sorry.
Another Kratos.
Be better.
I came across this really great video that I was watching. It's a long one. It was like a breakdown of Kratos. It was something about like the masculinity of Kratos or something like that, where it was basically breaking down God of War 2018 and really just like kind of diving deep into the relationship between him and Atreus. It was a really good video. I'll have to give you the title of it before the end of the stream, because I definitely recommend it to anybody who is a fan of the recent God of War games. What are we at? 50. So we're at 56 members, guys. Really quick, I see you guys. Well, actually, I have Aiden here. Sorry. Aiden with a $5 super chat saying, talking about the calm before the storm, did you notice Santa Monica hasn't tweeted in over 13 days? I would say that I've noticed, but I haven't really been on Twitter lately. I've been taking a break from Twitter. Like, I go on like occasionally, and what really kind of stopped me from going on is every time I would log on, I would hope to see news about gaming, and instead I would just see nonsense. And I'm like, all right, this app has become totally useless. It's not even giving me relevant information that I'm looking for. But that is interesting because what I do remember is that prior to the last 13 days, they seemingly were tweeting out quite a bit, like multiple times throughout the week. I'm really starting to think that, part of this calm before the storm is we're going to see Santa Monica show up at this year's showcase. Again, I don't want to get my hopes too high for that, just because I'm trying to be understanding that this new project they're working on, it is a new IP. A new IP is the most difficult thing, especially in the AAA space, to develop. It takes the longest, and a lot of things can go wrong. And so the timelines can really be drawn out. But I can't kind of help but focus on the fact that Cory Barlog, who is apparently directing this new game, he has very subtly seemingly been teasing his excitement for it. And kind of, we know what Cory Barlog likes to do. He likes to troll the fans a little bit. He likes to tease the fans a little bit. But I don't know, man. I'm just thinking the fact that we're hearing that a showcase is coming, and we're seeing this from Cory Barlog. And again, I just want to throw this out there. I mentioned it in a previous stream, but it's worth bringing up here really quick. Sony trademarked the title, Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. I think that's what it's called. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. And I look at something like that. Sony's trademarking it. It's out there in broad daylight. Everybody can see it. We have Cory Barlog seemingly talking about his excitement about this game he's working on, the progress that's being made, and seemingly teasing it. It's like, well, could the time be now, or next month, I should say. And that's the thing that's really kind of got me thinking about this new IP, is just that we are so close to Sony seemingly doing something. This could very well be the calm before the storm. I really have to wonder how people are going to respond to this new game, because the thing about this new game is it could be anything. It could be anything. I mean, one thing I do feel confident in saying, relatively confident, is knowing that this is going to be a brand new game from Sony Santa Monica, knowing that Cory Barlog has worked on God of War for nearly his whole career. I have a distinct feeling that this new IP from them is going to be very different, like just very, very different in many ways from God of War, to the point where it's like, I don't know, man. It's just going to be so, I can't really make any more assumptions beyond that, because it's going to be so fascinating to see this team come out and be like, hey, we made, what is that game, Kinetica, for like the PS2, and then after that, we just made nothing but God of War, and then here's our brand new project. It could be like literally anything, for better or for worse. But I'm excited. What if it looks like Avowed? I feel like there's a low chance of that, because Avowed kind of has Avowed is very clearly inspired by the Elder Scrolls, and if there's, I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't get the feeling that I don't get the feeling that this new IP is inspired by like any Bethesda type. I mean, I don't know. It is going to be like an RPG. That's something that was kind of revealed, I think, in a job listing. So it could have some inspiration from Bethesda, but I don't think it would necessarily go in that direction. Like, I'm not expecting like a kind of high fantasy type situation. I am thinking it's something in space. Santa Monica's version of Starfield. Yeah, but even then, I feel like it still will be very different, because the one thing I feel also pretty confident in is that whatever this new IP is from Santa Monica Studio, I do think it's going to lean very heavily in the direction of, a heavy narrative focus, character-driven, story-driven, very narrative-heavy. And it could be open world. There could be a lot of freedom. There could be a lot of exploration. Of course, these are all things that could be part of the game. But I feel more confident that, seeing how good the story of God of War 2018 and Ragnarok were, it's like, yeah, you got to deliver a great story here with some great characters, huh? Kinetica 2, yeah, that's what it's going to be. That's clearly what it's going to be. But yeah, if we're talking about the calm before the storm, Aiden, I definitely think that Sony Santa Monica and this new game that they're working on could very well fall into that category of, like you're saying, calm before the storm. They're getting very quiet. Maybe they're hunkering down, all hands on deck. They're preparing for this big reveal. Maybe that's why we're not really hearing from them. It's hard to say. I hope it's true, though, man. I hope it's true. But to wrap up I still have more to say about SOCOM before I move on. Here's a question I have for you guys, like shifting gears here, going back in the direction of SOCOM. When I talked about Guerrilla Games possibly being the studio working on it, which I don't know if they are or not, but if Guerrilla was to work on a SOCOM game, to me what would be weird about that is like, it's kind of this feeling of, well, does that mean they're going to turn it into a first-person shooter? And that's kind of the question I want to ask you guys. For those of you who are fans of SOCOM or who have played the past SOCOM games, how would you feel if Sony did announce a new SOCOM for PS5, but the big change is it's actually going to be in first person now. Or maybe it's a third person game where when you aim, you actually go into first person. That's a pretty common thing these days. I'm just curious about this because I don't know, man. I do want to put it out there that, and I'm going to double check this really quick actually. So because it's been a while since I talked about it. Let me see if I can find them. So look, interesting. So I'm looking at the Twitter profile of Simon LaRouche, online game director at Guerrilla. Worked on Watch Dogs 2, Rainbow Six Siege, Splinter Cell, Killzone 2, Far Cry Instinct. So the Simon LaRouche developer, he has been, listen, here's what's crazy. He's been working on whatever this multiplayer game is at Guerrilla. He's been working on it since 2018, man. Since 2018. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm assuming that that's what he's working on. He's working on a SOCOM. I do think it is still much more likely that this multiplayer game that's being developed is a Horizon game. But what's really strange to me about it is I feel like there's been some confusion, I think, about like what is going on with these multiplayer projects at Guerrilla, because we know that NCSoft has apparently partnered with Guerrilla Games to make this multiplayer title. But there again, it's like, are there two different multiplayer titles? Is this just one big Horizon live service game that it's going to have like a mobile version that's being handled by NCSoft, but Guerrilla's handling like the console side of it? I think that could be a possibility. But there is, again, I'm not trying to feed you guys too much hopium here or allow you to breathe too much in, but you do just have to kind of wonder a little bit after coming across this job listing, or not the job listing, but the this actor's resume, and the fact that nobody can figure out like which SOCOM game did this guy work on. Like nothing is showing up here. You do have to start to wonder, like, I mean, has there like been a team at Guerrilla Games this entire time working on a SOCOM game, and this multiplayer live service Horizon game has actually been worked on by a much smaller team in conjunction with NCSoft? I don't know. I feel like, again, the more I talk about it out loud, the more that sounds unrealistic to me. No, Dark Demon Media, I know. You're saying that the actor passed away, and that's true. That's true, and that's unfortunate. He passed away in 2022, and it is an older listing. But again, the thing that I can't look away from is the fact that people who discovered this, they dug deeper, Dark Demon Media, and they wanted to see, like, okay, if he's listing the game as SOCOM 111, he probably just means SOCOM 3. I mean, to be honest, that's a weird way to list the game. You know what I mean? I don't know why you would label it as SOCOM 111 and not just SOCOM 3, considering that's what it was called. But nobody can find this guy in the credits, this guy's name, this mocap actor's name. They cannot find his name in any of the credits of these games. And so it has given SOCOM fans some semblance of hope. Yeah, I mean, you do got to wonder, like, is that, Unit 111? Is that, like, could it stand for something like that? I've been saying for a long time that I think Sony has been making a mistake by not doing something with the SOCOM IP. I feel like there's a lot of potential for Sony to deliver like a really solid SOCOM reboot of some kind for the PS5 that can be highly competitive. I mean, SOCOM was always very highly competitive, and I know that a lot of people created clans and as like MLG back in the day, and there would be these different tournaments and whatnot. And it's interesting to think that Sony is more heavily involved with like esports than ever before. They bought Evo, and to me it just seems like a no-brainer. I mean, maybe the real difficult part about a new SOCOM game is finding the right developer and handling it properly. That I could see how that could be difficult, because I think it was it Zipper Interactive? They were the last ones. The last SOCOM game they made was for the PS3. I think it was SOCOM 4, and I think that game was kind of criticized a little bit for being more, it kind of started to chase the trends a little bit of. I remember a lot of people kind of saying like they basically turned it into like a third-person Call of Duty or something like that. I don't know how much truth there is to that because I've never played it, but yeah, 111 also stands for the Roman numeral 3. Yeah, I know, dude, and that's the whole thing about it. That's the whole thing where it's like, hold on, let me double check this real quick. See, that's what's even stranger to me about this is if you look at SOCOM 3, they don't use a Roman numeral. They just use the number 3. SOCOM 3, U.S. Navy SEALs. So I feel like that makes it even stranger where it's like, why would you list that out in a Roman numeral? Like it would just confuse people, especially if it's on like your resume. I don't know. I'm probably just clinging on to too much hope here, but if there's one thing that I definitely will, I'll plant my flag here once again, and that is that I think Sony needs to do something with the SOCOM IP. I think it's one of the more, Sony has a lot of IP that has a ton of potential, but I just get this feeling that if they were to create a AAA SOCOM for PS5, highly competitive, try to stay as true as you can to the original games and to the roots, but also obviously modernize it and, make changes that definitely need to happen. If they can do something like that, I think it would do very well. I just get that feeling. I think it would get a really solid response from the fan base, from the PlayStation community, but I think it could also have like wider reaching potential. And so regardless of if there is actually a new SOCOM game in development, I really do feel that Sony would do well to do something with this IP and not just sit on it. SOCOM 3 remake. Oh, that would be interesting. I don't know if that would, I don't know what. I guess if a SOCOM game was going to get a remake, would that be the one to remake? Yeah, people love SOCOM, man. I only played it a little bit back in the day. I never got too deeply into it, and I appreciate it for what it was. But I think I was just a little too young at the time. Like I couldn't really get into the whole competitive aspect of it because again, I was very young, so I was just like I kind of sucked at it, to be honest. And I think it just kind of turned me off from the game. But now that I'm much older, obviously, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I'd love to see SOCOM return and give that a solid chance again. And I would just love to see like how different it would be, how good it could be. Saying no one wants lazy remasters. No, I agree with that. You just never know which direction Sony's going to go in with some of these IP. But time will tell, guys. Time will tell. I guess I should also just throw this in here before we move on to the next topic. I'm not necessarily going into the next PlayStation show. If it does happen next month, I'm not going in anticipating a SOCOM announcement. If a SOCOM announcement happened, I would be shocked. I'd be like, whoa, okay. Like there was maybe like 10% of me that thought this could be possible, and it would be a genuine surprise. So hopefully that kind of makes it clear where I stand with the whole SOCOM situation right now. Kyle, you're saying we need a new IP like Concord to hit more than a SOCOM revival. Yeah, I do agree with that mostly in this particular instance because, yeah, I don't want to see Concord flop. I don't want to see that game flop because if Concord flops, then at that point it will basically indicate that Sony made a mistake purchasing that studio. So I'm hoping that Concord, when we do see it, it's like I don't expect it to blow up the world and be like, whoa, this is the next big thing. Again, like I wasn't expecting that with Helldivers, and that's what happened. I feel like you'd have to be very lucky to have that happen twice, 2 times in a row, back to back. But I'm just expecting it to hopefully be, well, it's not an expectation, but what I want it to be is I want Concord to just be a solid looking game that when people see it for the first time in action are like, you know what, this actually looks pretty good. This looks pretty fun, and that's it. I don't expect it to be anything more or less than that, or I don't want it to be anything less than that. It would be nice if it was more than that, but,